Good morning, boys. Great to welcome Ethan and Jahenns on today for a little bit of a chat regarding Blue Jay basketball. But I guess first of all, start with you, Jay. How did this all go down for you? Obviously you were playing overseas and having a great year, but maybe if you could just give our fans a little update of what you've been doing, since your time at Creighton. It's been 6 years ago already, which is hard to believe. But since that time, what have you been doing and how this virus has impacted you?
So since graduation, obviously I've been playing pro overseas. Like you said, it's been 6 years. Time have really flown by since then. I first started playing in Romania, then I moved on to Cyprus, and then Germany, and then Lithuania. And for the past 2 years, I've been playing in Hungary. In a city called Debrecen. So for myself this year, we were having a pretty decent year, kind of up and down until the last 10 or so games of what was the regular season when our team started turning things around. We went on a 7-game winning streak. We moved up to 3rd place in the league, and then all of a sudden, you start hearing news about possible shutdowns all over different European leagues. We heard about obviously the domestic leagues over here with the NBA shutting down and the Blue Jays, the boys playing on the court at Madison Square Garden and getting pulled off the court at halftime. So before you know it, we went from, like a super high where we were trending the right way to everything shut down immediately. So in a span of about 6 to 7 days, we went from preparing for a game to being back in North America to our respective homes. So it's been kind of a wild ride since then, but obviously you have to take the safe approach, and I'm glad that they were able to make an executive decision and be able to send the imports home as quickly as possible.
That's awesome. It's good that you're home safe. Ethan, I know you have a wedding plan for next summer, unless Danielle changes her mind between now and then. But I know you played for a couple of years after college until your knee said that was enough. Kind of tell us about that experience, and then where your career path has taken you since then.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, Coach, I played 2 full years, one in Spain and one in Germany, and actually, Jahenns played on the same team I was at in Germany after I left, and I basically got him that job. So he hasn't thanked me enough for that, but
passed on your wedding gift, Ethan.
Passed on a strong recommendation for him. But then since then, I did summer league with the Lakers that was 2015 summer. And after that, they're like, we wanted to go to the G League. And I basically said, I'm done. Kind of bounced around in Chicago originally. And now I work for a software startup out here in Denver. And yeah, I've got engaged in December. So next May, Danielle and I are going to get married here in Colorado. So it's been eventful, but not too much on basketball for me the last 2 years, other than just watching.
Now, is this virus situation with you, E, is it relegated you to your working from home, or are you able to be out some?
We've been work from home for almost 6 weeks now, but it hasn't really affected too much of it. The technology and Skype and Zoom and everything else has made it pretty easy. But yeah, we got hit pretty hard early on, especially up in the mountains. So Colorado kind of just did the standard lockdown like everyone else has. So just trying to navigate through.
Well, before we start talking about some of the memories that we have from Creighton, this is really a question I've never asked you guys before, and I'm a little scared to hear the answer. But, so, like Jahenns, you signed with Coach Altman, went through the recruiting process, I think signed shortly before I took the job, and Ethan, you had just finished a really good freshman year. Like, give me your thoughts, or give our fans your thoughts, like that, those first couple of days of practice when Coach Mack walks in and the way things are going, and like, Jahenns, obviously you hadn't played college basketball yet, but Ethan, you're 1 year into it, you think you learned the system, you know the system, and now it's something new. We can start with you, E, and then like kind of your thoughts at that time, which had to be kind of a stressful time in your life.
Yeah, that was, I remember it pretty clearly that, after my freshman year, we did, I think, the CBI, and we got to I don't even remember what game we lost in, but we were playing over at the Civic Center at the time. And then that ended, and Coach Altman kind of abruptly left. We had a meeting with Rass, and Rass gave us a really clear plan that he had his guy, and we actually, I think, heard something within 10 days. And I don't know, Coach, if you know this story, but I was Doug's host when he visited Creighton as a preferred walk-on under D-Rock and Coach Altman. So when that announcement happened that he was coming here, I just really liked Omaha. For me, it was a good fit on, the school, a good distance from Minnesota. My dad's family's from Norfolk. My mom's family's from Des Moines. So good, easy middle ground. And we didn't talk too much when you were at Iowa State, but I think it had to do with scholarship limitations at the position. But I just kind of want to see what it was worth. And actually, I ended up hurting myself pretty early on that year, redshirted, and we kind of figured it out from there. But I'll tell you one thing, I don't think any guy that's played at Creighton since Jahenns and I probably knows what you guys put us through that first year on a little bit of let's call it a camp to test our toughness. So I don't know if you guys ever revisited that program, but learned quite early on that you were there to set a new tone and kind of get that losing out of us that we had that first year.
Jahenns, what about you?
For myself as a high school senior, that time was kind of insane. From committing to Coach Altman on a Saturday to hearing on a Thursday that he's potentially leaving, waking up on a Friday with that confirmation, and then spending that entire next week wondering whether or not I'm still going to school in Omaha, Nebraska. So it was kind of crazy for me, but I'm thankful to D-Rock. Obviously, he's over at Drake now doing an amazing job. I'm very happy for him, but I'm thankful for D-Rock for kind of holding down the fort, and he was the one that really recruited me, and he came all the way up to Canada to recruit me. And at that time, well, 10 years ago now, it wasn't that common for Canadians to play Division I. I know it's a lot easier nowadays with technology and being able to watch film in real time. But back then, like it still was kind of a struggle for us Canadians to get a Division I scholarship. So for me, it was just kind of like in the span of a week, I'm like, are my dreams really going to come true? Like the stuff that I've been planning for the last little while, like am I actually going to be able to achieve that? And But D-Rock kept me grounded. He told me that he really, obviously, he loved the Creighton community. He wanted to stay there at the time. And that just kind of gave me a sense of, okay, I guess I still have a spot there. So then when you and I had our first conversation, I don't know if you remember this, Mac, but you're just like, yeah, I just got introduced as the head coach and I'm bringing my son along with me. I'm going to have you talk to Doug here on the phone. And I promise you, that was the most awkward conversation that 17-year-old me had ever had at that point in time. It was kind of like, hey, I'm Doug. I'm Jay. Cool, I'm going to be your teammate next year. Awesome, dude. And that was it. Like, but obviously things worked out.
How do you guys, obviously we had some incredible years as you guys became, sophomores, juniors, seniors. From your guys' perspective, did you see some of that starting to come together when you were freshmen? I guess it was during, you made the decision, in November, Ethan, we redshirted because of the plantar fasciitis. And then, but were you able to kind of see it? Because I'll tell you when I started to see it, but I'm kind of curious when you guys felt, you know what, like we keep this group together, this could be a special group.
Mm-hmm. I remember it, Coach, in one way that I redshirted November-ish. I think I started practicing again right at the second half of the season, maybe like February, March, April. And we had Gregory Echenike on that team, Grant Gibbs, me, and then Eric Crawford at the time. And we used to just kill the starters, I remember, because, we had Grant was a really good player and Greg was coming off and getting ready to play from his transfer. So I knew if we had a reserve unit that was competing very well with the starting five at the time, that we had a chance to be really deep and, stay healthy and just see what happened from there.
Jay, how about you?
For myself, that freshman year, it was an up and down season. It felt like we would win one, lose one, win two, lose two. And we really just, we head into the Valley tournament. We beat UNI after my infamous miss layup, and we end up losing to Missouri State in the second round. And then I think the decision to play in the CBI is when I really started to be like, whoa, like this group could really go far. At that point, we had some awesome seniors who really accommodated us in a way that they, really didn't need to. Kenny Lawson chose to take a step back and allow Echenike to really blossom. Daryl Ashford and Wayne Reynolds and Caleb also did the same thing for me. And they really kind of taught me some of the nuances of playing at that level. And then obviously we had Casey Herman, who was hurt, but still a guy that was present every day. He was still vocal. He was still active with our team. So those guys actually, like, they were kind of like the ladder that allowed us to take that step forward. And during that CBI run, we ended up losing to Oregon in the finals, sure. But like going into that, and I was like, man, if we can keep playing together and practicing together and getting better every day, like we really have a shot at doing some big time things here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned, because I was about to, Caleb and Casey and Daryl and Wayne and Kenny, because I think, Ethan, you talked about the tough stretches we had in that early practice season, trying to maybe change some things culture-wise that we felt that needed change. And that doesn't happen if the seniors don't buy into it. And I think those guys' willingness to accept us and buy into what we were asking them to do allowed you guys to kind of follow the lead. But I really saw it, during the CBI. If you guys remember, we had like 10 days to prepare from when we got beat in the Valley tournament till the first round of the CBI. So we played almost like an NBA series, a 7-game series, a bunch of you young guys in red shirts versus the older guys. And that's where we kind of instituted the faster pace of play, where we just let you guys fly up and down. I think it was Austin a freshman on that team yet?
Next year.
Probably
no.
not. I think it was Antoine and Josh, you two guys, Doug, Grant, and Gregory, I think. And then we had all the seniors and some of the upperclassmen, walk-on guys on that other team. And we played that, and it showed me that how you guys were able to operate in space and in transition, and that you really enjoyed playing that way. And then, we played Davidson. I don't know if you remember that in the CBI. The score at halftime was like 54-49 at halftime. Like we had played in lower scoring games all year. And I remember Coach Gordy coming into the locker room at halftime saying, "We just gave up 50 freaking points. 50 freaking points." I said, "I know how many we gave up. Let's figure out a way not to do it again in the second half." So that was kind of the beginning of how we started to play. But at that time, I saw like, you know what? This group can be special, and they can be special in this system and style of play, and that's kind of where it was born. And then we've gone and ran with it since then. But I have some favorite memories, obviously, of things that transpired during the course of those 4 years. One of them, I had some of the guys at the lake last night, and we watched the first 9 minutes of the Villanova game, and as because those guys hadn't seen it, like I don't think Marcus Zagorowski, Sharif Mitchell, they'd never watched the game, and explaining it to them didn't do it justice. So we pulled it up on YouTube and we watched the first 10 minutes. And as a backdrop, obviously we came off of, I think we were 4-0 in the league. Mm-hmm. We went to Providence, got beat pretty handily over there. I think a couple of you were fighting some illness. And then I think we just had one day in between. It was like a Sunday, Tuesday deal or Thursday, Saturday. I can't remember the day of the week. But I remember we had that short prep practice over on their campus. And then we just kind of laced them up and went after it. But like you two guys obviously were heavily involved in that barrage that started the game. Go back to that, Ethan, and explain kind of your feeling and as you look back on that game 7 years ago, what it was like then and what it means to you now looking back at it.
Yeah. I definitely remember we played pretty poorly and got beat up for our first conference loss at Providence. And then just knowing, middle of the week road game, like didn't have a lot going for us going down to Villanova. But it really helped me. People probably don't remember this, that we played in that exact same arena the year before against Cincinnati and against Duke.
Yep.
And I shot really well against Cincinnati in that game as well. So I was confident about that building. I don't remember particularly shooting very well in shoot around or anything else particular, but the first shot that I had that game was quick. I was a little off balance, but it felt like really good. And I could tell early on that the way they were guarding me, they didn't quite get how I played. And I think that was Villanova's first time playing against me. So their big guys were not used to closing out. They were used to protecting the rim. And once I got that second one to kind of squeeze in there, like you guys had known, I was probably shooting the ball every single time I touched it until I missed. And some of those I think look deeper than they are because of the NBA line, but it was one of those things where if they were going to give it to me, I was going to just keep testing my luck till I missed that first one.
Jay, what do you take from that game with your memories?
It's kind of like Ethan. I don't really think we had the greatest shoot around, and I think that's the most common question people ask, especially about that game, is did you know earlier in that day? How were you guys feeling? Like, did you have a feeling that night was going to be a blowout or a barrage or whatever name you want to attach to it? But I just remember thinking, all right, we just lost our first Big East game on the road, and here's another road game against the number 4 team in the nation. We have to show up. And I remember thinking, like, whatever happens tonight, just give your best effort. Just give your best effort. That's all you could ask. And it's very tough to win on the road anyway. So when Ethan hit that first one, and Ethan, I can't believe you're saying it looked deeper because the NBA line, dude, those were deep threes. Even to this day, when I go back and I look at that tape, man, those were deep. I don't care what you say about whatever line, but when Ethan hit the first one, I was like, okay, here we go. Like, we're good. We're back. We're back in stride. And I think he made the second one. I made the third one, and then he made the next two. And we started off the game on that 15-4 run or something like that. And I remember bench. I think I punched Ethan in the chest even, and like I was hyping him because I just like the feeling was there. Yeah, for sure. That was one of my favorite games in college for sure. It's probably up there with maybe winning the Valley in St. Louis against Wichita State. But yeah, that's a memorable one.
Yeah, it was interesting watching it with Jacob and Sharif and Marcus and Mitch last night. Because I think Ethan, you had hit 4 threes and you threw a post entry into Doug, and the guy turns around and leaves you and goes to dig down, and Doug flips it right back to you for the 3. You know, my guys that I'm trying to get to understand defense and play defense immediately say, "What is that guy doing? Why would he leave?" I'm like, well, we didn't know either, but it worked. So, I mean, that was, I mean, to me, as I look back, there are a lot of moments that, you know, you guys remember playing in the Valley and making the move to the Big East, and I'll ask you about that in a second. But like, there were moments that I think people knew about Creighton, but they really didn't know about Creighton. And to me, that game changed that, because it was on TV. It was Gus and Raph calling the game, number 4 team in the country. And we did something extraordinary, you know, to make 9 threes and break a Big East record, making 21 in the game. I think it totally changed the way our program was viewed nationally. And I think it was the biggest first step for our program that people could say, you know what, they're going to be okay in the Big East. This is not impossible. So, I mean, I really owe it to that team and that run, you know, there's a reason we are where we are now. And I think a lot of it had to do with the way you guys were able to blaze that trail that first year. Tell me, for you two guys, like you sign up to play in the Valley, you play your first 3 years of your playing career in the Valley, and then all of a sudden you get to play your 4th year in the Big East and go to Madison Square Garden and go to all these, you know, go to New York and Philly and DC instead of Terre Haute and Carbondale and you know, Cedar Falls. So what was that like for you guys? I mean, it had to be almost like a new beginning in some ways. And we'll start with you, Jay.
Yeah, it was certainly different. We had a lot of success in the Valley, but I think what some people forget is how difficult the Valley was. Like, as difficult as it was to win road games in the Big East, the Valley was just as difficult. The teams were so familiar with each other. The coaches knew each other. The game plan had to be spot on for you to give yourself a chance to win a game, especially on the road. So I think that actually really prepared us for moving into the Big East, where things were new, the lights were a little bit brighter, but the familiarity of the teams at that time were not there, at least for us, I would say. So I really enjoyed, like you just mentioned, like someone digging down off of Ethan. That would have never happened in the Valley, you know. So there were some things that teams had to do to adjust with our style of play. And at that time, we had already blossomed into who we were, and some other teams are still trying to figure it out. But yeah, the brighter lights, the bigger cities, the better hotels, all of that was awesome. It almost felt like overnight we were treated a little bit differently simply because we had moved up to the Big East. So for me, it was a great experience. Phone call. I was very proud to be a part of that team that ushered in a new era for Creighton athletics, and it really, like you said, blazed the trail for the guys who are doing it now. And you look down the road a couple of years later, and we're Big East champs. So, like, I'm very proud to say that I was part of that group that ushered in that new era.
Ethan, how about you?
Yeah, I just, you know, I really appreciate you making me play center as we go to a more athletic and taller league. But in the Valley, it was, you know, Wichita State was very good, UNI, the other teams. So I felt like tactically the league probably scouted better and harder than the Big East did early on. It kind of seemed to have the mentality of, let's just, you know, toss the ball up and we're going to do what we're going to do and not worry about what they do. And I think that really played to our advantage, because people might have underestimated us in the Big East early on and not have like thought that, you know, bunch of 6'7" guys could figure out how to get rebounds or compete with bigger athletic players. But we took probably the best shot of every team every night in the Valley for 3 straight years. So I thought that really prepared us mentally to just kind of walk in and be like, we're used to taking people's best shot. Now we're going to go give it, because they're not really giving us the time of day or the respect early on. And I felt just kind of going through that with the guys that we had in the Valley for all those years really set us up to kind of set our own tone and not really have to worry about what they're going to do, just do what we do better than they can.
Yeah, we just that year we needed a little help from the rest of the league. If you guys remember back, we went 14-4, and Villanova won the league at 16-2. The only 2 losses being to us. We just couldn't get anybody to help us knock them off a couple times. Let's talk about Grant Gibbs a little bit. I know he's a friend of both of yours. Obviously, he's doing great with his coaching career. But explain what it was like to have him as a teammate and some of the intangible things he brought to our team that made us who we were. Let's go with you first, E.
Well, it was great that he couldn't shoot, so he could pass us the ball to start. But Grant, just kind of has a different approach and philosophy to how he gets his teammates ready, and how he kind of sees, maybe an opportunity that wouldn't have been found through either just, film or anything else, kind of just an instinctual feel to getting people open. And then just his ability to get Doug the ball in situations where it didn't seem like he could really helped. I know there's a play that you guys still run that Doug and Grant made Dakota pretty famous in the fact that we could almost get a layup on this play whenever we needed to. And that execution, that sight and ability, really just having the confidence with him out there, the ball in his hand, that he can deliver a pass or a situation to get us a bucket. And then I'm sure, like a lot of fans have seen, Grant can really stir the pot when he needs to. I played Nebraska 5 times while I was there, and it seemed like 3 of those 5 games, Grant's stirring something up, or, people remember a lot of the North Carolina stuff. So it's just good to know that on your side, that guy's on your team, and not, you're going against someone that's going to try to get under your skin a little.
I can assure you the North Carolina fans still remember the North Carolina stuff, because I emails every year, Ethan, still to this. So it hasn't changed. Jahenns, your take on your teammate Grant.
Grant, I would definitely categorize him as a guy that you would love to have on your team, but hate to go up against. While being overseas, I played against and with some of the former Big East guys. And Grant always comes up because somehow, some way, he rubbed him the wrong way during the one time or the couple of times that he matched up against them. So. But I think for us, Grant was just such a calming influence. I know for myself, him and I had plenty of conversation on and off the floor about different ways to approach the game. And I know, Mac, you remember for sure. Ethan, I know you do too. Like, when I first came to Creighton, I was very turnover prone. Like, I was very speedy. I didn't know how to slow myself down. And even though, you coaches talk about it all the time, it's different hearing it from a teammate who really has your best interest in heart. And Grant kind of did that for me to the tune of having a 4-to-1 turnover ratio my senior year. So he really helped me in my development, just as far as slowing things down, seeing it from a different perspective, trying to make the easy play as much as you can, and then just taking care of the ball and finding open guys. He just really simplified the game for me in that way, and that's just the kind of guy he is. So you saying that he has success as a head coach right now, and us seeing it as well, it's no, I mean, I could definitely see where it stems from, and I'm glad that he's in a position right now where he could be helping others the way that he helped me and so many other guys during his tenure as a Creighton player and student athlete.
Well, as you guys know, he was always fresh for games because he didn't practice much.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, there was never cobwebs on that little stationary bike up in the old gym, and nor was he running through any gears on it, because it wasn't going that fast when he was over there. He was on a leisurely bike ride over there in the corner while we practiced. And Ethan, to your point, Grant had a way of, he would throw the pass to where you were going to be instead of where you were. and some of the cuts you referenced with Doug, but also some of the stuff we ran in the high post with you and Doug, one dive and one cut, and like he would read it before you were even there, and by the time you were there, the ball was delivered and your feet were set and it was gone. And that's a skill. You guys have played enough basketball to know that it isn't coaching that teaches that skill. You either have it or you don't, and he certainly had it. Best memory during your career. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we accomplished from playing in the Big East championship game your first year to a couple Missouri Valley Conference titles, 3 NCAA tournaments, 3 NCAA tournament wins. The things we did against Nebraska during your career. Ethan, like, is there one thing that stands out as kind of the one thing that you remember the most about your experience at Creighton?
Oh man, that's a bundle of a question in one, but I would say just early on, Coach, one of the things that really kind of changed my mindset with you was we went from, expecting or really hoping to not lose to expecting every game to win. And then once we kind of wrapped that mindset around, like, just being a part of, I think of both Wichita State games, the whiteout at home to clinch the Missouri Valley Conference outright, and then a couple of weeks later only to go in and beat them to win the Missouri Valley. To play a big part in both those games was probably a bigger point of my career. Just I don't think Doug played very well, or he had missed some open shots in the first half against Wichita, and you didn't play me the game before because I actually broke my wrist against Drake, I believe. I didn't play against Indiana State, and then to come in and hit those first 3 shots in a low scoring first half game, and you said something to me on the bench on the way out of that first half, like, I told you so, or I told you to do something like that really resonated. And just, to make those shots when your teammates need you really kind of went a long way for me. It was definitely a highlight. And then the sour part is they go on to get to the Final Four, and we're the last team to beat them.
Yeah. Jay, how about you?
I'm right there with Ethan. I think just beating Wichita State in that Valley Tournament Championship. For me, that junior year for me was a tough one, very up and down. My 3-point percentage went down, and my confidence went down with it a little bit. But I do remember the coaching staff working with me every day, getting those shots up, getting those extra reps up. And I remember Coach Smith always telling me, you're going to do something special for us. You're going to come in, you're going to hit 4 or 5 threes when we really need you. Just keep your head up and just keep letting it fly. And that all culminated to that game, essentially, where we, like Ethan said, we got off to kind of a slow start. Doug missed some shots that he wouldn't miss on a regular basis for whatever reason. And then Ethan came in, knocked down a couple of shots, and all of a sudden we got that energy and that flow back. And I think I made 4 threes that game in spots where we really needed them. And then obviously the layup to put us up 3, and then we have to get a defensive stop at the other end to win the game. So the Wichita State game for sure. But I would say off the court, we already talked about the Villanova game, but that plane ride back to Omaha from Philadelphia is something that I will literally never forget. Like, usually we're taxed after games, and we just go back on a plane, and some of us finish whatever assignments we have because we still have to go to class the next day because it's Creighton University, or some of us just pass out in the corner somewhere. But we were all up. We couldn't sleep. We were ecstatic. We were playing different games on our phones. We were laughing super hard. Like literally for the 2-hour flight back to Omaha. So that moment for me, like, I'll never forget it. That was one of the best nights that I've experienced as a student athlete for sure.
That's awesome. And Ethan, a couple questions from some of our fans. The beard, the lumberjack, that whole persona, like, did you enjoy it? Did you embrace it? And, as you look back on it, I mean, I'll never forget the lumberjack night in the CenturyLink. I thought that was incredible, but give us kind of your perspective of that.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. I don't know how it all quite deemed to come through, because I believe I had a beard the year before. I believe I shot 3-pointers the year before, but must have been the Fox Sports Network or FS1 with a little bit more publicity on it, and just kind of how our team was performing that year. But it was definitely really fun. The beard really helped kind of, either not a mentality, but just kind of, identify a little differently. And I definitely still rock it because everyone tells me I look like a 5-year-old kid when I don't have it on now. So I've kept it, but I know the marketing team at Creighton did a really fun job with that. And I just wish that game was before Villanova because I didn't really get to touch the ball as much as I used to
Yeah.
after that.
How about the Wragge bombs? Do you still hear it on occasion if people see you?
Every so often, the people that know it will say it. I don't quite know how it got deemed. I'm gonna point my finger at Nick Baugh or John on the radio, but it was something fun. I've heard there's a couple shots of it around town. I think Coach Murphy has a good quote of telling me it's made up of a free throw, a foul, and a 3-pointer. So that's all that's in it. But it's fun, and I think it's something that a lot of people hopefully look out with a good memory, and it's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Jahenns, how could it be made up of a foul? Didn't Ethan never fouled anybody in practice or in a game in the entire 5 years he was there? Did he?
If Ethan tells that story, he's never touched anybody ever. But I think Bill will tell a different story, both in practice and in games. But I'll let him say his side of the story for that one.
And we'll end with this, guys. I just want your, from a father standpoint, the connection you guys both had with Doug and continue to have with Doug is something that's really cool to me. The way you guys all, there was a special chemistry between all of you. Everybody had a specific role to play, and everybody was a champion in that role. Just tell me, like, how all of you guys have stayed in touch. Following his career in the NBA, but just what you've done to keep that group connected. Because as you guys talked, Jahenns, you talked earlier about the guys that were seniors when you guys were freshmen and the impact they had on the trajectory of this program. And I speak for everyone involved at Creighton and all of our fans that we are where we are today because of guys like you two that gave everything you had to this program, that played a role that we needed you to play. I mean, Jahenns, I still remember you chasing, what was the guy's name at Cal that's still in the NBA?
Alan Crabb.
Alan Crabb, that had a great 2 games before us, and you might as well have the same shorts on that he had on that night. You were that close to him the entire time. And Ethan, like you said, being unselfish enough to move to the center position because it gave us our best chance to win that year. Those are things that I know our fans appreciate, and we wouldn't be where we are without those things. But just tell me how you guys have stayed connected, and what that connection still means to you guys 6-7 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I can go here, Jay, but it's been incredible just to see kind of Doug develop and kind of figure out what his niche was from a freshman into his senior year of college, and then from his first year in the NBA to where he is now. And I've kind of been a firsthand to see that transition the whole way, and just be able to, I go to his games when he's here in Denver or other areas that are close by, but just texting or calling or like just talking when we get to see each other about, like, not necessarily, oh, Doug, you played great, like all the shot. It's like more the little things about, like, stuff that people that really played with him get to know. Like, you can kind of see Doug's shot now every so often, that if he, I'm sure you tell him that sometimes he gets flat or up and down, or why is he not in the post more? But I have a different perspective on that stuff with Doug, because I have shot against him for 4 years in college, and know that he has such an unbelievable touch. He has to, he's got such a unbelievable gift of that. So just to kind of touch base with him on those things, and just see, how his mindset has changed from playing, that entire game in college to, like, you got to come in and be that spark plug, which I did at times my first couple of years, and just changing that mindset and getting yourself ready to go. And he's just been really, he's not bad at a lot of things, and he's kind of just stayed with it. So it's been overall we don't get to see each other as much as we all do, but you play 4 years with someone, I could call Jahenns right now and it's like we haven't, it's like we haven't missed a beat and we're going up to Brandeis for lunch later. But it's one of those things where you spend so much time with people, so much of their habits that there's no time separation that's going to cause there.
Jahenns?
Yeah, I agree with Ethan for sure. I was Doug's roommate for 3 out of the 4 years before Grant selfishly took his scholarship and made you pay for his school Mac. So me and Doug
he still owes me that.
Yeah, he definitely does for sure. You should make him pay back with interest too. But me and Doug have a special bond. We're just so tight for so many years. Like Ethan said, like the separation with me playing overseas and Doug being in the NBA now. It doesn't matter how long we go without talking. Sometimes it might be a month, but whenever we get back on the horn, it's like nothing's ever changed, And I've just been so proud to see his development as a professional player, because I saw him be, a kid that was just grinding, trying to make sure that his father doesn't redshirt him, to becoming an All-American and winning Player of the Years, to getting drafted, to trying to figure his way out in the NBA, and to now really understanding his spot and where he belongs and doing it to the best of his ability. So I've been proud to see his accomplishments so far. I know the sky is still the limit for him. But yeah, man, like we just have such a special bond that it doesn't matter what happens from here on out. We still stay in touch. We're still super cool. I see him a couple of times in the summertime. Obviously, this summer might be a little different with everything that's going on right now. But as soon as we see each other, it's just kind of like we were freshmen, sophomore, juniors again, just hanging out like old times. So it's cool, and I feel like I have that bond with most of the guys that I've played with. Like Ethan said, if Ethan calls me, like he knows I'll be there to answer. We could talk, and it's like nothing's changed. If Grant calls me, Austin, Will, all those guys, like Avery, all those guys. So it's been such a blessing to have them a part of my life, and it's kind of a brotherhood that's just really never going to end.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it means a lot, not just to me, but I know to our guys. Like I get texts from you guys, win or lose sometimes, win a big game, lose a tough one. You guys are some of the first guys to reach out. Sometimes Jahenns, it's 4 a.m. over in Europe when you're watching it. So, yeah. I mean, we do appreciate that you understand that your connection to our program is forever. And that, what we're doing now is just an extension of what you guys laid the groundwork 4 years ago. So you'll always be Blue Jays. We always will appreciate who you are and how you went about being a student athlete at Creighton, and certainly appreciate you guys taking time to catch up with me today.
For
awesome.
Sure. Anytime.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys. We'll be in touch soon.
See you, Coach.
See you.